Hey, Fabulites. How you doing? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I got a question for you. Are you watching Harlots? Have you seen episode 1 to 3? I guess the Detroit News or some Detroit paper picked up an article or they wrote an article about Harlots. So I'm 3 episodes in and I never even heard of it. Or they're 3 episodes in and I never even heard of it. But I watched it last night. So if you'd like to hear my thoughts and my commentary, my review, my recap on season 1, episode 1 through 3 of HULU's Harlots, please stick around. The channel is Be Fabulous You. I'm Angela, and let's jump right on in. Now, I didn't take notes as I was watching because I wasn't sure if I was going to keep watching, but I think that I am going to keep watching because I am endlessly, another one of my endless fascinations is this whole exchange of sex for money, sexual favors for money, relationships for money. So I like to watch WAGs. That's the TV show about, in Basketball Wives, we're watching that and talking about some of the choices that people make in order to have, you know, these men that they consider as wealthy or valuable for whatever reason. And when I watched the Feast of All Saints, I was fascinated by the placage system. That's where the older women sold or negotiated arrangements on behalf of younger octoroons, mixed raced women with wealthy white planters, so that, you know, they could have homes or whatever. It's sort of like trying to make the best out of a worse situation. And I guess, you know, so I'm just fascinated by the whole subject because I feel like women and people in the world, everybody's just trying to find their way and find their place. So I don't personally have this hostility. Like, I remember when Tyra, when there was this whole thing, like Tyra Banks and other shows had these women who were looking for sugar daddies, and people were like, use your brains to make money. And I'm like, well, some people, you know, are blessed with brains. Some people are blessed with educational opportunities. And some women are blessed with, you know, the skills or the vibration to work with men in a certain way. And I don't know if I feel like one is more valuable than the other. I think that society, you know, I just think that there's a lot of issues going on for women who work as sex workers, voluntarily, involuntarily. I think sometimes when people are volunteering to be sex workers, there's a whole dynamic there. But it's just really interesting to me. And I guess an area that I'm like, you know, it's hard for me to, I feel like if I hear about a Harlots, I'm gonna watch at least a few episodes. So anyway, and this is written and created by women, directed by women. So I think that that's interesting. And there are actually Black characters in it, even though it's set in London, 1763. And I shouldn't say even though, because I don't really know a lot about London. But I know that there are Black people who are throughout the world, have been throughout the world in time and in space. So, you know, I'm sort of interested to see, watch the unfolding of that whole dynamic and situation, because, you know, 1763 in London, America was not even officially a country, but America, or in this part of the world and in other parts of the world, the enslavement of Africans was institutionalized. It had been a tradition for 50 years, 100 years, and I think in this country there had been enslaved Africans since the 1600s. So we might even be 100 years into the enslavement of Africans in this country, the United States, and yet this country is not even the United States at the time that this piece is taking place. So I think that is, let me roll the window. Maybe I'll get some air through the top, because it's hot, y'all. It was 80 degrees here yesterday. I think it's like 75 or something, but the heat from yesterday kind of is still here today. So whereas yesterday it was supposed to be hotter. You know, it woke this morning when I went for my walk. It was like really warm and really nice. Okay, so so what I'm going to do is just basically kind of go through the characters and their stories, what I remember of them. You know, even watching like Kim K, where her family had wealth. She came from a wealthy family, but they were not famous. But through, you know, selling sex, she and her family have become famous. Jocelyn, who we know is a sex worker on Love and Hip Hop, or she came into the series as a sex worker and is trying to work her way up the hierarchy. And then just this whole idea of like the hierarchies in, like, if you're looking at like a Basketball Wives or a WAGs or, you know, anywhere, it's sort of like, I know me and my mother were talking about the fact that these women is sort of like this idea. I don't want to say these women, I guess we women or some women, there's like, you know, if you can get in as a one night stand, that's a good start. And then if you can be a regular side piece, that's something. Then you can move up and be a baby mama and or a wife. If you can't be a wife, a baby mama is better than not being a baby mama. And then you could be a girlfriend or a wife. And there's like the whole, you know, kind of hierarchy of moving up. So Jocelyn to come in as you know, she wasn't she was just I don't know, she was a dancer that he liked. She got into a relationship with him, and then she became his main woman. So I guess that's like, you know, moving up the hierarchy. But anyway, I'm interested. So, again, it's set in London, 1763. The show is called Harlots. So, we're dealing with the sex industry. And we're dealing with the sex industry from a middle-class brothel up to a high-class brothel. And then we have one woman who's a courtesan, which is sort of like a geisha. That's something, or to me, it seems like she's sort of like a geisha. And then the high-class brothel sort of seems like the women are like, you know, they're not just there for sex, or they're not just selling sex, supposedly. You know, they're selling their education, their culture, their conversation, their knowledge of world events. So there's a little bit more, a different type of training, or a little bit more training or whatever involved with that. So there are two brothels. There's one woman who is currently working as a courtesan. Like, she has a one-man man who's supporting her. And we see some of the side characters are like, one woman is, I guess, specializes in like beating men. She's like a madam. So, you know, that whole thing. And then there are kind of black people throughout. So let's just start off. Margaret Wells. I guess there are 4 characters that they say, from what I can research, are the 4 main characters. I don't know if they're the 4 main characters to me, because of course I'm going to be extra hyper focused on the black and brown people, but we'll see. But Margaret Wells is, she's a mother of 2 daughters. One daughter, she sold her virginity a few years ago, and now her daughter is being kept by a guy who really, really wants to be her official keeper with a contract and everything. And that reminds you of placage, or however you describe it in New Orleans. I don't know how to pronounce it. Excuse my French. But she feels like the contract is bullshit. And there's even sometime, her name is Charlotte. Charlotte is the daughter of Margaret Wells. Margaret Wells has a brothel, and Lydia Quixley has a brothel as well. Lydia Quigley's brothel is like more upper class. Margaret Wells is more middle class. She's trying to move up. She's trying to move to a new neighborhood so she can have a better class of clients. Lydia Quigley, better class. Lydia Quigley, her clients are politicians and wealthier people. Charlotte is the oldest daughter of Margaret Wells, the one who runs the middle class brothel. She's a kept woman, as I started to mention, and the man who's keeping her wants her to sign papers so that he can keep her officially, so that he can like own her. And she feels like he's foolish, and she doesn't really want to be owned by him. And I think she kind of feels like she can negotiate and get what she wants without signing papers with him. And he just really wants to own her. And so, you know, that's kind of an interesting dynamic. Then we have Lucy. She's the youngest daughter. She's 15 years old. And when we meet her, or at the beginning of the series, she is losing her virginity and coming into the business, although she's been around her mother's brothel. Her mother is Margaret Wells. And then we find out very quickly, maybe because I read about it, but in the first 3 episodes, we definitely find out that Margaret Wells she was sold into a brothel at the age of 10 for a pair of shoes. Her mother wanted a pair of shoes, didn't have the money, so she like, here, take my daughter Margaret Wells. And the woman that she sold her to is Lydia Quigley. Now, the way that Lydia Quigley runs her high class or upscale brothel or whatever is basically like kind of like a sharecropping system. Like, it's really about debt. So she charges the women for everything, and it almost seems like it's set up where by the time that they pay for their clothes, they pay for their room and board, they pay for their training or whatever, there's constantly in debt to her. And I don't know if she keeps everybody locked up, but that's basically it. Their freedom is very hampered. And I don't know if I officially mentioned this, but Charlotte is kind of like, that contract with you, that's worse than being a wife. She don't want to be a wife. Sometimes, like now, people are aspiring to be a wife. But some people aren't aspiring to be a wife, but she feels like a wife is in a worse situation than she is in some ways. And we meet the wife of the man who keeps her. So the man who keeps her is Sir George. He wants to be her official keeper, get paperwork and everything. She won't sign the paper, Charlotte. But George's wife is Lady Carolyn. And it's her money, but somehow, I guess because of the laws or the dynamics of her being a woman at that time in London, and maybe even now, he has more access to her money and more control of her money than she does. So he's using her or her family's money to keep this woman, and he comes across as very foolish. And it seems like they haven't been married for really long. There's William North. He's a black manservant of Margaret Wells. So they're like, he's her man, he's her servant, he's the bouncer at in the brothel. They have a child together. So there's a little boy. He seems to be about 8 or 10 years old, who's running around. So she has the 2 white women daughters, or 15-year-old girl and maybe 18, 19-year-old girl. And then she has this half black son with William North. And then there's Charles. He is the son of Lydia Quigley, and he's kind of like a pimp, a John. I can't even really call him a pimp, because he basically seems like his main occupation or interest seems to be in having sex with the prostitutes that his mother employs. And there is a prostitute called Emily Lacey who, at the beginning of the series, she's working at Margaret Wells' middle-class brothel. But she kind of feels like she's better than the other people, or she wants more opportunity. She wants to move up, just like Margaret Wells wants to move up and have a better class brothel, or, be in a better neighborhood. Emily Lacey wants to move up, so she ends up leaving Margaret Wells' brothel and getting into Lydia Quigley's brothel. We have Thomas Hugsby. He's the manservant of somebody driving real slow down the street and pulling in the driveway slow. He is the manservant of Sir George. Sir George is the keeper of Charlotte, who is the daughter of Margaret Wells. I don't know if you're following all of the different people, but we have Thomas, and he's the manservant. And then we have Nathaniel Lennox. He is a white man who had been involved with Margaret Wells, who has gone over to America and become a planter, i.e. plantation owner, i.e. slaver. He has a black wife and 2 mixed children. And he also has, his wife's name is Harriet Lennox. And he also has a son named Benjamin Lennox, who is not mixed, but he's there in England with him. They just seem to have come to England. So those are the main people. So let me just go through some of the stories or some of what happens. So Margaret Wells already told you when she was 10, she was sold into prostitution by her mother. She was sold to Lydia Quigley, but now she has her own business, and she's trying to move her business from she's trying to move her business up the ladder. She's trying to climb socially. She's trying to groom her 2 daughters also to help the family to climb socially. So it's like a family business, and they're all trying to move up. And I told you Margaret has a black boyfriend, manservant. We don't know. Somewhere it said that he had formerly been a slave. I don't know if that's true or not. And they have a son together. So Margaret, that's the main character. I'm trying to think if it's anything going. So at the beginning, her brothel, or early on, her brothel gets, like, you know, looted. The police come and they're like, okay, we're arresting everybody. This is a brothel, and she has to pay $100 fine, or 100 currency fine, and was just in the process of getting ready to pay for her last down payment. I don't know if she was buying or renting this new place, but that messes with her money. So now, even though she didn't want to put her younger daughter on the market, like there's one scene where a guy is like, oh, I'll pay you $50 right now. I'm gonna just say dollars because I don't know, you know, what did they say? Francs? No, that's in France. Pounds. He might say, I'll pay you 50 pounds right now. He's like, I'll pay you 20 pounds right now to have sex with your youngest daughter. Okay, 30 pounds. Okay, 40 pounds. Okay, 50 pounds. And she's trying to save her daughter for as long as possible. She's trying to get her youngest daughter as much education and opportunity as possible, because I think she feels like that'll be better for the family, but she's also kind of like, well, that'll be better for her daughter. And she feels like her mother was just so janky. She's a better mother. So we have Margaret Wells. We have Lydia. Her space is lavish. The girls are well groomed. We talked about the sharecraft, and they kind of have her character drawn so far as very cruel and dry and mean. Like, she ends up going to this employment agency, and I don't know if I said this, but in London at that time they said 1/5 of women were involved with making a living selling sex, and there were brothels on every corner. So people are desperate. There's also a religious lady in there, I don't know her name, Florence Scandal, and she lives in Lydia Quigley's brothel, which they call a boarding house, but it's a brothel. And Lydia Quigley is trying to use her to tear down Margaret Wells. So she's very, very religious, but she doesn't want to be living out on the streets, or she likes living, or she wants to live in a better class of place than she could afford to live. So she's living in this brothel, even though she considers herself to be religious. And she may be blind. I can't really figure it out. But they kind of have Quigley's character drawn as like really like the lowest of the low in terms of her moral character. Like, there's this, she goes into this employment agency, and a girl is trying to get work, a young woman is trying to get work, and one of Lydia Quigley's clients is looking for a virgin, and she like, well, I got these young girls, they look virginal. Shoot, if you turning people out at 10 or 12, they young. But I guess 10 or 12, a year or two of working as a prostitute, you might not be as young and fresh and innocent as someone who genuinely is, you know, inexperienced sexually. So one of her clients wants a virgin, or, you know, has a hunger for virginity. And so she goes to this employment agency, and a girl is talking to this woman, and she's like, oh, come here. I know you don't know this. You're new in town, but that woman is she runs a brothel. She'll lock you up in a room, and she'll sell you, you know, and make you have sex with people, but I'll help you out. And then she does to the girl. She takes her, she locks her up, lets these wealthy men have sex with her because they want to have sex with the virgin. And then she's like, you should be happy. You made more money, you know, at one night being a prostitute for these men than you would have made a year working what you were trying to get at the employment agency. So shut up and become my prostitute now. So they have her painted real, we don't really have very much sympathy for her. She does not come across as a sympathetic character at all. Then there is Charlotte, the kept woman. She's kind of wild. They say in the reviews that she has a streak of recklessness. I don't know if she's reckless. I feel like the man that she's dealing with, she knows how to handle him. And I think she's figured out that she don't have to sign papers. And there's like this one scene where he's out of town. He's in and out of town. And she done told him that, oh, I've just been in the house all week. And then his manservant, whose name is Thomas Huxby or something, he's like showing the man in the paper, Sir George in the paper, where Charlotte has been going out Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. She ain't been in the house all week. She been hanging out all week. But I think she feels like she knows how to handle him, and she don't have to sign papers to get him to pay her debts. She don't have to sign papers to be living in this nice place. He don't have to own her for her to be able to get whatever she wants from him. And she just feels like he's foolish and he ain't shit. That's what I think. I don't think she's necessarily reckless, although I guess maybe the way that she's grown up, you know, she might be reckless and she might be in a little distress. But she's that's Charlotte. And then Lucy, she's 15 years old, and I guess her sister, her virginity was auctioned off to the highest bidder at 12 or 13. So in this episode, they end up, or in the first 3 episodes, they end up auctioning off Lucy's virginity to the highest bidder, because the mother had to pay the fine. Her mother is Margaret Wells. She had to pay the $100 fine, or the £100 fine, and so she needs money in order to move her from middle class to upper class in terms of where her brothel is located. And she's also trying to move her family up. So she needs the money to try to open up some more doors and open up some more opportunities to move her family up. And so Lucy, she thinks she hanging out with the prostitutes. All the people she know are the harlots. So she thinks she can handle it. And I'm kind of surprised that her mother hasn't done a better job of preparing her. She does know how to play the piano. And maybe people just figure, hey, you go out here and you fuck. It ain't no preparation needed. But I really wish that her mother had prepared her more for dealing with people, negotiating the types of situations she would have to encounter, and, you know, dealing with abuse. Because she get out here, the woman sell her virginity, the first man she have sex with is like, you ain't shit, your pussy ain't shit, you a piece of shit, I'm gonna tell your mama I want your money back. The girl is like, oh Lord, please don't tell my mama. And then the next people, now the mother done double sold her, because the mother sells her to the highest bidder, and then at the last minute, her sister's man, oh my gosh, that looked really scary, like they were about to run into me. Her sister's man, Sir George, who's trying so hard to control her sister Charlotte, decides to bid on Lucy, trying to break down Charlotte, or make Charlotte's upset, or make Charlotte jealous, or make Charlotte more pliable. Although Charlotte act like she don't give a damn about him, and she feel like she can find better. And I don't know if she can or she can't, but hey, you know, I don't know. But Lucy, so she deals with him first, and he mad at her and abusive to her because she's not her sister, basically. And maybe she don't have no natural, you know, skills or know how to negotiate the situation. And then the second situation that she was sold into, which she was sold into before she went to her brother's man, it's a couple, and they are crazy, they're sadistic, they're you don't have the spunk that your sister has. They're abusive too, and it's like this little girl doesn't really, she's out here trying to figure out how to negotiate, how to handle these situations, and still try to maintain some sense of herself, some sense of dignity. And I wish that her mother had prepared her more for you know, just how to relate to people, for the social skills related to any sales business. I mean, not just, you know, the selling of your body, but, you know, when you're dealing with people, trying to understand people, trying to, you know, I just feel like her mom put her out here. I don't really, and she ain't really prepared, and she around all these prostitutes, and she don't seem like she picked up any tips, or, you know, she don't seem like she's a natural, and she wasn't prepared. So she's kind of like, you know, by the end of the 3rd episode, she's been dogged out, she's been abused, she's lost her virginity, in a harsh way. You know, when she's getting prepared to go and lose her virginity, her mother is like, I brought you these shoes. How do you like the shoes? And the daughter tries on the shoes, the daughter, Lucy, the young daughter. And she's like, well, you know, they don't fit well. And her mother is like, make them fit. And it's kind of like, to me, it was like a really intense moment. Oh my God, I'm at 25 minutes. So we talking a lot about this, but this is 3 episodes. William North, he's the manservant. He's black. I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about the black man being punked out. You know, there's a situation where his woman is a mistress. She runs this brothel, but I guess part of her business is if people want to have sex with her, she got to have sex with them. That's the business. And this guy who had been dealing with her before, who's now dealing with a black woman in America, wants to have sex with her, and she's like trying to figure out if her black husband, manservant, if it's okay with him, and she ends up having sex with him because she's in that business. But one of her friends does say that the black man is the only man that she never charged to have sex. So we'll see. His name is William North. The Charles, who's the son of Lydia Quigley, he's like a dumb type character. He's kind of chubby, and he's really taken with this Emily Lacey. We talked a little bit about Sir George, who really wants to own Charlotte. He just want to possess her, and she not having it. His wife, Lady Carolyn, ends up having an interaction with Charlotte, and you know, so I think that Charlotte and Lady Carolyn are going to kind of try to work together, but Charlotte is kind of like, you know, since it's your money here, she's just like, I'm the high price, you know, hoe. I got what I want, everything I want, and what you gonna do about it? Nothing. So you can try to look down your nose at me if you want to, but I don't really care. Okay, so then there's this plantation owner, Nathaniel Lennox. He's a former lover of Margaret Wells, and current lover, because he comes back. It turns out he's come back to England, I guess, because he's sick, and he ends up dying. And when he comes to the brothel, she ends up going to his house because she's trying to get him to invest in her moving up. Remember, she got this $100. She trying to raise this money for her brothel. So she goes back to talk to him, to his place, to see about him being an investor in her brothel. And a black woman opens the door. She's like, "Is your master here?" And the black woman is like, "I'm the mistress of the house. You know, I am Mrs. Lennox. I'm the wife." But she's not the wife. She does have 2 children with the man. He treats her like the wife. But when he dies, the harlot Margaret Wells is there. And the black woman, Harriet Lennox, is like, Margaret Wells is like, "So y'all aren't married?" The black woman tells her, "I'm not really married to him." Harriet Lennox says, the wife, "I'm not really married." And the man is dead. And Margaret Wells is like, "Well, are you taken care of? Did he leave you money?" And Harriet Lennox is like, "I don't know." And Margaret Wells, the harlot, is like, "Well, let's go look through his papers and figure out what's going on." And they find the freedom papers for Harriet Lennox, the black woman who's come from the United States, which is not yet the United States because it's only 1763. The U.S. doesn't come to the U.S. till 1776. And she finds the papers, but they haven't been signed. So she's like, the black woman, Harriet Lennox, is like, "Oh, she done lost her man. She done lost her idea that she free. Oh, my Lord, he didn't sign." And the black woman, Margaret Wells, is like, "Look, boo, we ain't got time. Find the pen, sign the paper." And right when they're trying to get that worked out, Benjamin Lennox, who's the oldest son, comes in, and he's about 16, 17, and he had gone to the brothel, and he was like really nasty and mean, and he was like with his father, he like, "I bet you want that black woman there because you like black women," and he's just kind of, ugh. And his father is like, "No, I want Margaret Wells." But so Benjamin Lennox comes in, and he's like, "My father isn't even dead, and you all are going through his papers. Get out of here." And so in the middle of the night, Harriet Lennox, the black woman, the wife who's not the wife, she's trying to leave with her 2 children because she never got the paper signed, and she's about to become an enslaved person again, she thinks, because he really don't seem to like her or black people. And he comes down while she's trying to escape, and he's like, "Oh, you trying to sneak away and steal in the middle of the night?" And she's like, and he's like, "Here are your freedom papers." And she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't think that you would sign them." And she's kind of happy and relieved and confused. And she's like, "Okay, kids, me and my 2 kids, let's go." And he's like, "Oh no, you can go, but the 2 kids are mine." And they're going back to the plantation because that's where I can make the most money. And she's like, "No, I can't go without my children." And meanwhile, a white servant has come and is taking the children away. And the children, "Mama, And he's like, get out. So she has to leave in the middle of the night in a strange country. She has her freedom, but she doesn't have her children. And she's like devastated and shocked. And she is so, it's like the real world is just slapping her in the head. So Benjamin Lennox, he's coming off as a real villain. Emily Lacey is the prostitute. So part of the setting of the story, oh my God, we're at a half hour. Part of the setting of the story is that there's like a book that's published that lists all of the prostitutes, or a bunch of the prostitutes, their names, where they are, and gives a description or a rating. So Emily Lacey is like the best prostitute in Margaret Wells' brothel, and she gets a good rating in this book too. And so she takes that book rating, and that's what she takes to Lydia Quixley to kind of move up. Because, you know, the girls are, you know, she thinks she the shit, and they trying to keep her kind of modest, and she don't really want to hear it because she feels like she's the shit. Lydia Quixley is not really interested in her until she hears that she's coming from Margaret Wells. And Margaret Wells, I guess they have a personal vendetta. So she's like, oh, she takes her just so that she can say that she's taken this, so she can harass Margaret Wells about having taken Emily Lacey from her, like, you know. And then there's this other thing where they find this woman who had been a prostitute at the high-class Lydia Quixley's place, and now she has what seems to be an STD. I meant to look it up, but she's like out on the streets. She's been thrown out on the streets with this sickness to die, and Margaret Wells gets her and has a reporter write a story about how, you know, there are diseased women at this high-class brothel, and it's Madam Death, and she just throwing them on the street. And then when the woman actually dies, Margaret Wells puts the woman on at Lydia Quixley's front doorstep, you know, her dead body there. And then when Margaret Wells finally gets into her new brothel, where she's trying to move up to a better neighborhood, when she first comes to move up to a better neighborhood, I think she's in court or something, so she can't move up to and the Quixley has hired thugs and stuff to keep her from moving and harass her, and they beating up the black man, and you know, it's kind of a mess. And then when they come back, Margaret is with them. So when they finally get into the actual new place that she's been trying to get into, the dead body of the prostitute that they had left on the doorstep of Lydia Quixley is in there, and it's been deteriorating. And so it's like a terrible smell. Even when she gets the body out, she can't really get the smell out. So I don't know. Go watch the first 3 episodes if you haven't watched them, or if I don't give you enough of a sense of it. But Harlots comes on Hulu. I think it comes on Monday nights. At first I thought it was Wednesday nights, but I think it's Monday nights on Hulu. You watching? All right, fabulous. Thank you for watching, commenting, and subscribing at least this video. Check out Harlots. I think I'm going to keep watching. It's pretty interesting. A little bit of drama, a little bit of black people, a little bit of as a woman stuff. So with that, thank you for being here. Have a fabulous day. Be you. Be fabulous. Be fabulous you.